Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for today's Explainer. We are going to be unpacking a story that pretty much defines how our entire modern digital world operates. To start, I want to take you back to a very specific chaotic day, November 18, 2025. On that Tuesday, the digital world just buckled. Massive platforms we all use every day, Twitter, Spotify, Uber, even ChatGPT, suddenly vanished for millions of users around the globe. And here is the truly crazy part. It wasn't a coordinated cyber war. It wasn't a massive solar flare. It was actually a simple configuration change in a single database at a company that most everyday internet users have never even heard of. That company is Cloudflare. They are the invisible giant behind the modern web, and today we're going to figure out exactly how they got so incredibly powerful.
20%. That is a massive number. Because as we sit here in 2026, Cloudflare handles roughly 1/5 of all global web traffic. To put that scale into perspective, platforms like Discord, Shopify, Coinbase, Canva, they all depend entirely on Cloudflare's infrastructure to function. Now, while Cloudflare was originally built to make the internet more resilient, their massive success has created this really fascinating paradox. By protecting so much of the web, they've inadvertently become a massive single point of failure. Basically, when Cloudflare goes down, the cascading failures bring down services that don't even directly use them, simply because they rely on other backend systems and APIs that do. It's a massive domino effect.
And that really highlights a fundamental tension we need to talk about. Is Cloudflare simply a neutral public utility, like the water or power company, just making sure the internet flows safely to your house? Or have they become more of a private toll operator, unilaterally deciding who gets to participate in the digital economy and who doesn't? That's the central paradox of our explainer today, how a company that was literally built to protect the open web might now just be its most powerful gatekeeper.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at how it all began. Section 1, From Spam to Security, the Origin Story.
It actually started with a very simple question, way back in 2004. Where does email spam actually come from? Founders Matthew Prince and Lee Holloway built this system called Project Honeypot, specifically to track how spammers were harvesting email addresses. It grew quietly for a few years. Then, in 2009, Matthew was getting his MBA at Harvard Business School and met Michelle Zatlyn. Michelle brilliantly pointed out that they shouldn't just be tracking the bad guys, they should actively step in and stop them. So they drew up a business plan, won the Harvard Business Plan competition, and launched a private beta in 2010. But here is the massive surprise that totally changed their trajectory. Users started reporting that not only was the service blocking threats, but it was actually making their websites load 30% faster. Basically, by filtering out the garbage traffic and caching static resources, they accidentally built a world-class performance tool. The secret weapon behind all that speed and scale is a really clever technology called Anycast. Now, unlike traditional network routing, where one IP address points to one specific physical server location, Anycast allows every single server in Cloudflare's global network, which spans over 330 cities, to advertise the exact same IP address. So when you try to load a website, the network automatically directs your requests to the data center that is physically closest to you. This absolutely slashes latency. But even better, it builds inherent redundancy into the system. If one data center gets completely overwhelmed by a massive denial of service attack, or if it just randomly fails, the traffic naturally flows to the next closest node.
But to secure all that rerouted traffic, you need incredible encryption. And for truly unbreakable encryption, you need truly random numbers. The funny thing is, computers are actually terrible at being random. They're strictly logical machines. So to generate true randomness, Cloudflare relies on literal physical chaos. At their San Francisco headquarters, they have a massive wall of glowing lava lamps. Seriously, it's called LavaRand. A camera constantly films the unpredictable shifting blobs of lava and digitizes those visual changes into a stream of cryptographic data. In their London offices, they use the chaotic swinging of double pendulums, and in Singapore, they actually use a Geiger counter measuring radioactive decay. It is a beautifully physical solution to a highly digital problem, completely ensuring that no hacker on Earth can predict their encryption keys.
All right, let's fast forward a bit. Section 2, the Edge Compute Revolution, from CDN to Connectivity Cloud. By the time we hit 2026, the entire landscape has completely shifted. Cloudflare isn't just a traditional content delivery network or CDN anymore. They aren't just caching static images and text. They've evolved into this massive connectivity cloud, driven by a platform called Cloudflare Workers. Workers allows developers to run complex application code directly at the network edge, literally just milliseconds away from the end user. Because it leverages the V8 JavaScript engine, which is the exact same tech powering Google Chrome, these functions can initialize in under 5 milliseconds. That completely eliminates the frustrating cold starts you traditionally get with older cloud providers. And this brilliantly illustrates their scale. We are talking about a platform that can handle over 100,000 requests per second on a single CPU core, with latency staying consistently under 1 millisecond. It's an absolute game changer for building lightning-fast web applications. But with this massive evolution comes a brand new philosophical battleground, specifically around artificial intelligence. Cloudflare recently rolled out this easy button feature that allows website owners to block all AI bots and scrapers with a single, simple click. Now, on one hand, this is a huge win for content creators, finally protecting their hard work from being scraped without permission by AI companies who tend to just ignore polite web crawler rules. But on the other hand, critics are pointing out that this relies entirely on Cloudflare's proprietary unilaterally maintained block list. It raises a very real fear of fracturing the open web into sealed-off silos, where Cloudflare's internal algorithms effectively become the new toll operator, dictating exactly what AI models can and cannot see. Which brings us to some difficult questions. Section 3, the paradox of neutrality, policing the internet infrastructure.
You see, for years, Cloudflare maintained a very strict policy of content neutrality. Their stance was basically that infrastructure providers, the invisible plumbing of the internet, should absolutely not act as the content police. However, following really intense public pressure, that stance was put to the test. Cloudflare eventually terminated services for 3 highly controversial websites: the Daily Stormer in 2017, the message board 8chan in 2019, and the forum Kiwi Farms in 2022. In all of these instances, Cloudflare acted after the sites were linked to imminent, escalating threats to human life and real-world violence.
So, the crucial point here is actually perfectly captured by Cloudflare's own CEO, Matthew Prince. When he was speaking after one of these very terminations, he stated, "The ability of somebody to single-handedly choose to knock content offline doesn't align with core ideas of due process or justice." Even the company's own leadership recognizes the immense danger of a single corporate entity holding the power to effectively erase a website from the usable internet. It's exactly why, by 2026, Cloudflare is increasingly being viewed not just as a neutral utility, but as a digital sovereign. Let's move to and see how this builds into the current business landscape. Section 4, the 2026 CDN market, navigating the multi-cloud future. Despite their immense cultural and technical power, Cloudflare is definitely not the only player in town. Looking at the marketplace in 2026, the CDN space is fiercely competitive. Akamai remains the revenue leader, holding about 31% of the market share. They're heavily driven by their deep integration inside ISP networks and their lock on high-end enterprise live streaming. Cloudflare sits at roughly 22%, constantly growing through their land and expand model, where sites start on a free tier and eventually graduate up to enterprise services. And right on their heels is Amazon CloudFront at 21%, leveraging their massive footprint of embedded network locations and, of course, their seamless AWS integration. Together, just these 3 providers control nearly 3/4 of all CDN-fronted traffic on the internet. But what's really vital for infrastructure teams today is matching the provider to the exact workload. If you are pushing massive live video, Akamai is often the go-to, costing around $2,000 to $3,600 for 200 terabytes a month. Now, if you need intense edge computing for a global app, Cloudflare is the powerhouse, running roughly $1,000 to $2,400. But look at that third use case for heavy video on demand or huge file downloads where you just need raw, cost-effective throughput. Without the premium edge computing features, niche players are carving out massive space. A provider like Blazing CDN can deliver that exact same 200 terabytes for just about $600 a month. That massive price difference is completely restructuring the build versus buy math for major media enterprises right now. Which ultimately leaves us with this final, really provocative question. Has the guardian of the open internet become its most powerful gatekeeper? From tracking email spam in 2004 to processing tens of millions of requests a second using lava lamps and global edge computing in 2026, Cloudflare's rise is an absolute marvel of engineering. But as their network grows into an inescapable, mandatory layer of the modern web, the policies they set, whether it's unilaterally blocking AI bots or terminating service for controversial sites, ripple across the entire globe. Understanding this invisible infrastructure isn't just an IT issue anymore. It's absolutely crucial for understanding how our digital world is actually governed. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep questioning the infrastructure around you.